Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's focus on what the core of the Legends are up to. Sarah kind of goes away. She got some business to handle in Star Sea, which me and my brain's like, what's that about? I'm curious. That's probably just something just kind of like, she's off for a while doing something, but I'm like, I kind of get the feeling like maybe we'll circle back to it in the next episode to kind of find out what it is, but we never find out in this episode. But Ava gets left in charge, which Ava's like, no. I'm only just getting associated being a legend. But Sarah's like, no, you got this. Just chill, relax. You got it, because it's like being with the legends. It's a cushy job, So being captain's no big deal. So obviously she's trying to organize the legends, which literally everyone was like, really? No. The only person that was down for it was Ray. Was like, oh my god, look at the binders, aloha, oh my god, this is amazing. But the fact of the matter is, you have like Nate and Barad being like, nah, man, we're very like free flow, because it's like you can't use like one doll's like one situation to like one operation to fit all situations. It's kind of like, nah, the legends are very free flow, which they kind of have been, to their benefit and their detriment on many occasions. So obviously the teams kind of want to go off and do their own things. Zari's still on board. Barad was kind of showing her off, the ship and everything, learning the ins and outs and everything. Like, wait, you can see the future, which is like, that's not a good thing. But you knew that was going to circle back in some shape or form with Zari, like, about that. Which, it's almost interesting because, like, it's like, Ava's like, no changing time, or at least not seeing the future and stuff like that, which is so interesting because when you actually think about it, like, Zari's whole thing was obviously she was trying to, like, make changes to the timeline where it weren't big changes enough that she could, get her family back. So it's just interesting that, like, it's almost like they brought it back in a different facet of just, like, Zari kind of being obsessed with time to a certain extent. It's not the same thing, but I just think there's a correlation you can make there. But regardless, there is a whole thing going down in France in like the late 1700s, like before around the time of the French Revolution. And obviously there's some stuff going down there of like, all right, we got an encore to deal with, and lo and behold, who decides to tag along is Zari. But Zari manipulating Ava by being like, yeah, if you made me come along, that'd be you being really cool. And Ava's trying to, handle things like Sarah, which she's like, yeah, not trying to be too stiff about the whole thing. She's trying to be more cool about it. So they go, but things aren't kind of like bad. It's actually a party. And in fact, this is actually Zari's wheelhouse, her being, the socialite, which is so interesting because we have so much of that. Like, we had it with Sue in The Flash. We also had that with like Mia on Arrow. So it's just, like I said, the correlation is just interesting. But the fact of the matter is, Zari's able to kind of get them by and everything by pretending like, oh, like, I'm a big name even though you don't know me. So she's able to kind of squeeze by. Ray's kind of tripping out because it's like, wait, is that Nora? And that's what I was like, oh. So I was like, I was wondering how that whole situation was. I was like, wait, is it because Nora was evil at one point in time, but like she never actually died? So I was like, then what is that? And it's like, oh, it's Marie Antoinette. And it's like, huh. It's like, and you see them kind of getting enchanted by her, and it's like, huh. I was like, okay. And so with all that going down, Barad's kind of like going around. He's like, whoa, he's drinking, and even Zari's being like, yeah, something's weird here. And it's that basically Marie Antoinette, actually, because this is supposed to be around the time her head's supposed to be getting lopped off. It's actually kind of crazy when you find out why she got her head chopped off in the first place. Apparently, like, while the people were starving, she was partying it up, and now she's basically created a never-ending party, and literally people are dropping dead from partying so hard. So, hey, party hard just makes me think of the video game title, Party Hard. Regardless. But once again, Zari's environment, so she gets Ava and, dressed up. It's like, oh, no, we can't have you just wearing those rags. You got to kind of pretend like you know the place. It's like, oh, it's like, hey, Napoleon. She's like, Napoleon? It's like, no, but he, trick him into thinking like he knows you. And it's like, oh, invites you in. And it's like getting close to Marie Antoinette and trying to make her think like, oh, man, there's an even cooler party. So, which that whole situation, it seems so unreal. It's like the wackiness that is Legends. I love it, where it's just kind of like Marie is like being taken away, but Napoleon's like, oh, where are you going? And she's like, there's another party. And everybody's like, yeah! It's like, it's such a modern day thing of like, oh my god, the party, the after party, we got to hit up the after party. And everybody's running and stuff like that. Bayride, Ray and Nate are as well, and I love it. And it's just a whole thing of like they're running with her, and her head gets knocked off. I was like, that's super messed up. Nate jumps to catch it. I was actually surprised it wasn't Ray, but that was interesting. And she's still talking and everything, and it's like, oh, that's actually pretty disturbing and messed up. They grab her body. It's Ray who grabs her body, which now that kind of goes, and it kind of compensates for him not catching her head. But it's like, that's got to be weird, especially because she looks like the woman you love, because that was the whole thing where he was accidentally let. So I love you. Oh no, she's like, no, it's okay, I love you too. And it's like, oh, I was like, right, you two haven't never said that to each other, huh? I was like, oh, look at you two being so sweet. I even love how that plays in a mixed story, because him and Allie, he's like, I think she might. It's like, I feel sick, I'm run down. You think she gave me something? It's like, oh no, that's those are feelings. You're crushing on her. And I forgot what. I think he said, is that like a disease or something? And Ray's like, no. And then like even Gideon chimes in, and it's like, oh no, based on my readings, you really, really like her. And obviously Mick doesn't handle emotions well, so he's just kind of like, no. So we kind of leave it at that. But that's kind of neat to see, like, hey, there's kind of a love life bubbling for him too. So that's kind of neat. But obviously, this I like that whole Marie Antoinette thing. Like, is it really going to be just taken care of like that? It's like, oh, we're going to, it's like the spell was broken, whatever charm she had over them. So they separate her head from her body. And it's like, oh, this is interesting. But then sadly, Zari and Marie Antoinette actually kind of bonded, because for her, it's like everyone had this preconceived notion of who she was. They just assumed that she was just kind of like some party girl, and she just kind of had to go with the flow of it, which Zari can understand, because for her, she's been famous since she was 6 years old. So it's a thing of like, how do I know people actually like me for me and not just like me because of something I can do for them because I'm this personality. And so she looks into her future, finds out that her fragrance that she's been spraying all over the place this episode actually it crushes her popularity. She basically loses a lot because of it. Interesting enough, the woman that was screaming because like, oh, I lost my senses because of her. Wasn't she one of the counselors? She's one of the leads in the Disney show Bunked. I'm pretty sure that's the same actress. I could be wrong. But nevertheless, and it's like, obviously Zari, like her reputation and all that means everything. So she figures out the charm came from like the spray, so she decides to kind of take advantage of this. We also find out she has a DJ boyfriend who's like basically, was it S'mores Money? It's basically like a marshmallow, which is interesting. I mean, to be fair, it could be any DJ, but it's more so like a direct reference to like Marshmallow in particular. But obviously, all like DJs, not all, but quite a few DJs who do the big head thing. But nevertheless, it's actually kind of sad too when she actually does show up and she finds out like, oh wait, you want to set up a whole, we're setting it up ahead of time. I'm like, oh yeah, like, so he's got this whole plan of like, her assistant's like, oh, when you get to the MTV Awards, he's going to propose to you and everything. And she's like, really? How romantic. Realizing like, oh man, like, and that's actually probably like, that's kind of sad that that's such a behind the scene thing. And once again, that plays into her fear of like people only liking me because of my position and stuff like that, not knowing the real me. And she, spritzes some, which causes S'mores to go, you know what, I'm going to propose to you right now. Stuff gets spilled. Everyone in the crowd starts becoming obsessed with her and everything. Luckily, the team shows up in time. Well, actually, everyone kind of has to split up because it's like, oh, while they're dealing with the Zari situation, the whole situation with Marie Antoinette's headless body roaming around, going full-blown Sleepy Hollow there, which is pretty cool when you actually think about it. But I love, because even because Ava was like, I shouldn't have celebrated so soon, but I love like Ray being like, oh, come on, it wouldn't be a Legends mission without one thing going wrong, or rather several things. It's like, yeah, that's super Legends. Like, you're actually literally on par with typical Legend stuff, Ava. She wants to be so perfect at the whole thing, because Ava's kind of a perfectionist, but also she doesn't want to let Sarah down. So there's that whole situation. But Mick and Ray are dealing with Marie Antoinette's body. I'm wondering why Ray didn't let Mick just toast her. But I guess there's the whole thing of like, even if you kill them, they'll just come back. So I guess that was the whole thing of like, we don't have a permanent way of kind of dealing with her, like Rasputin situation, so we got to deal with this a different way. I guess that's what the whole thing was. And it's just kind of like, it's like, oh, she's just a body. She then proceeds to kick Ray's ass. Ray knocks the fire gun out of Mick's hand, and now there's a headless body running around with a fire gun. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. At the same time, the whole Zari thing, they're coming up with a way of striking down this whole thing. So luckily, Behrad is able to kind of keep them at bay. And Ava's like, do you trust me? And helps washes away the perfume by jumping in there. I also love that because I was wondering, because at first I was wondering, like, did the charm not work because there were, like, ladies or something? Because I was like, oh, it's only working on the dudes. But then you look around the party, it's at, you know, and it's like, no. Like, at the French party, it was like, oh, you know, everyone there, like, there's dudes and girls being affected. So I was wondering, but it's like Ava ended up figuring out it's because of that Dragon-esque Zari's perfume. It made it so that it dulls your senses for a while, so it made it so the perfume couldn't work on them. So, but luckily that kind of breaks the charm. I even love Nate walking over and like, Mello, what was it, S'mores? You're Zari's boyfriend? He's like, yeah, and then he punches him, and then Nate's looking around and he runs away. I'm loving that. She's not even your girlfriend technically. That was a different timeline, dude. I mean, granted, he doesn't know the full scale of who him and Zari were, you know? But still, luckily it all worked out in the end, and now, like, obviously the future isn't too bright. Well, you know, present day for Zari, you know, 2044, of like, yeah, popularity is kind of suffering for it. But for her, it's like the whole thing of like, right, I was kind of selfish. It's interesting. Like I said, even going back to it, it's like, well, Zari was kind of being, you could make the argument she was selfish, but more so than anything being selfish, trying to make a better future for her family, and ultimately, obviously, because of Hayworld and everything, she ultimately was able to do that. But you know, it's sweet because obviously her brother's not trying to make her feel bad or anything, because she was like, I get it, I was selfish and stuff like that. But I was like, no, I was just going to ask if you wanted a donut. She's like, I haven't had a donut in so many days. And yeah, and Marie Antoinette's locked up and like, oh, what's a donut? Shut up, Marie Antoinette. But chewing into the donut, well, for one, she's wearing plaid, and the moment that showed up I was like, oh. And even Nate was like, oh yeah. She's like, yeah, you would be the one that into this. Is like, obviously she doesn't know, but it's like slowly but surely we are kind of steeping closer and closer to OG Zari, even to the point where she bit into the donut. Like, I think what it is, she's getting flashes of it, but it isn't enough to kind of sit in because of the whole time. I think it's kind of, the memories are there of the original timeline just because of being a part of the Legends and stuff like that. Those memories are so deep, like the time she spent with the Legends, they're so ingrained in her, but they're just being blocked off, and it just, all it's going to take is the right, you know, nudges to kind of set it all free. But that's all it is. Those flashes are nudges. They're not full-blown, like, because the whole hacking thing, who knows if she could actually do it again. But in that moment, she remembered how to hack. In that moment with the donut, she remembered, like, you know, just eating donuts all the time, also kicking it with Nate a little bit. So what I also thought was kind of interesting, a byproduct of all this, was like, you know, Ava and Zari. Because I think at first Zari was kind of feeling out of place because she kind of realized, like, look at this, like, tight-knit group. Because it made her realize, like, she has all these fans and stuff like that, but she doesn't actually have any friends, you know. And it seems like her first actual friend is Ava, which I'm like, I'm trying to think back on it. Like, Ava and Zari never spent a lot of time together. Like, I think they were friends, but it seemed like it might have been more so by association because obviously Zari is a part of the Legends. And, you know, I mean, I think Ava would consider herself friends with everyone that's a part of the Legends and stuff like that. But it's just like, just the thing, I was like, I like, they've had misadventures. They've, collabed and stuff in the past, but it's just like, I don't know if they'd ever straight up describe themselves as friends, you know. So that's why I'm kind of thinking it's kind of interesting that her first friend would be Ava, which I think kind of benefits Ava, because I don't think, honestly, Ava has many friends either. Like, outside of the Legends, she, you know, outside of the time viewer, she didn't have much of a life. I mean, because especially considering, well, she thought everything in her, you know, her life kind of was a lie and everything, you know, being a clone and everything. But still, I don't know, I just thought that was pretty neat, especially because she's actually encouraging Ava, because it's like, no, you actually did a really good job. Because for Zari, it's like she spent so long being someone else that she kind of lost herself along the way, which there's so much depth to that, just because it's like, well, in her own personal life, sure, but there's also the original timeline. She doesn't remember the life she lived, you know. But Ava spends her entire time being herself. Like, obviously she tries to be someone else, but it's like, no, be you, embrace that. That's what makes you special, you know. Because even the Legends stuck up for her, being like, oh yeah, Ava killed it as captain. We captured an encore and everything. So I don't know, I thought that was kind of a pretty nice element to this whole thing. So I'm curious to see what ends up happening with Zari sticking around. Like, you know, what else she's going to end up bringing to the team. She's an intern Legend, but I'm curious to see, you know, what it's like for her to be on more stuff. But another element to this episode was everything with John being tortured by, well, we find out later her name is Natalie, but she's Astra's mom. But it's like, you know, Charlie's just kind of like, yeah, whatever happened to John, he kind of deserves it. Gary being so concerned. It's like, oh, look at Gary doing the magic. I'm like, yo, your assistant and everything. It's like, oh, is he about to do it? All that happens is the doorknob comes off, and I'm like, oh, Gary. And because of that, Natalie was able to get out, but she's still trapped in the house. And so basically the episode is kind of like this haunting where basically it kind of shows you like John, I think it might be the thing of like, well, it's the thing of John is so, he has so much shame because of this whole Natalie situation, just a whole Astra thing in general, that he's warping the truth because he kept being like, well, cause basically we ended up finding out like Astra's mom, Natalie ended up dying in a car accident, like a drunk driver hit her. And it's like, yeah, Alex begged me to bring her back to life, which John did. But obviously Natalie's like, no, there's more to this. Like, you're a liar. And it turns out, well, we find out that basically John brought her back. But the demon there, he thought he had it under control. That demon grabbed Astra. So distraught, Natalie killed herself in that very room. So we also see those two kids walking around with the mask. I'm like, is that supposed to be? And especially because John ends up revealing the fact is, it's like Natalie was like his best mate and everything. I'm like, you two have known each other since you were kids. And even at one point, Gary was like, you loved her. So because we find out that basically Natalie gave him a choice. You either choose me or you choose magic, because, you know, Matt, and that's the beauty. That's the whole thing I like, that shows like the magician also like handle of like, oh yeah, like magic can be intoxicating. Like you can kind of get a little addicted to it. And John became very addicted to it. Like he let, you know, everything in his life kind of go to the wayside because of it, and because of his addiction to magic. You know, the proof that he is so good, that he is so in control. Literally all this fell down because it, you know, because he even tried to make it seem like, oh, her husband Alex, he's the one that wanted this and stuff like that. But it's like, no, John's the one that really came up with the idea of resurrecting her and everything. Alex wanted her back, but it's just like John's the one that was kind of pushing for her. We see Gary getting taken away by the kids and disappearing, and then it turns into this whole thing of like, all right, this is all because of your lies, John, which John was like, you want to be all up in my business, Charlie, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, it's so easy to kind of pass judgment on me. It's like, we're not in your head. But the fact is, why are you here? It's like, the fact of the matter is, you just happen to show up here and everything. Like, why are you here, Charlie? And Charlie's like, it isn't about me. But Natalie possesses her and goes, what? Okay, John, what's the real reason why you brought me back? And he's trying to say it's because, you know, I missed you and everything. But she's like, be truthful. And it's like, the truth is, he want her back because more so than anything, he wanted to prove her wrong. He wanted to prove like I was right by choosing magic over you, because it's like, well, look what my magic is able to do. I'm able to do this because if I chose you, I would have lost you, but with magic, I can just bring you back. So kind of showing that at the end of the day, his reasoning isn't all altruistic. And even like the whole Astra thing, it's like, if you want to save Astra, you have to, this hard truth that you're having to swallow, that maybe there was more to you bringing me back. It has to be, that same energy has to be towards Astra. Don't do this because you need to do it for her sake. Because all you're trying to do saving Astra is for your own ego, to make you feel better, to alleviate your guilt for the mistakes that you've made. So it is a situation of kind of having to deal with that. But we also find out, I forgot what he called it, but it's essentially basically like the Threads of Fate. It's like the three sisters from the Hercules cartoon. Those sisters are kind of representing that thread thing, and it actually exists, and apparently Charlie's connected to it, and I think this is actually pretty neat, because last season we got no insight into Charlie, so this is a great opportunity to kind of get a lot of background into Charlie, because we didn't learn we learned bits and pieces about her, but like, she's still an enigma. And now, even because it turns out she actually broke that thing that they're looking for to potentially save Astra, because it's tied to fate. So I guess it's like the plan was like to get that and, you know, use it to kind of manipulate Astra's fate, or rather change her fate. If it's something on such a like celestial level or, you know, cosmic level, I think it could be able to do it. I mean, but I still kind of feel like there'll be ramifications for doing something like that. Who knows? But I mean, it's not really a possibility, because Charlie's like, I broke it into pieces, which is like, and she said I scattered across the multiverse. So that must mean that. Which also makes me wonder, does she actually, the fact that she referenced that, like, across the multiverse, I'm like, wait, did they inform you of that? Did someone, like, give you the whole, like, everyone remembers the multiverse type of situation now. I mean, obviously, like, they've made it so, like, you know, Cisco made it so, like, oh, like, everyone can, you know, get the note. Like, they took what John can do to your mind to unlock that, and it kind of did it to everyone. Like, well, at least we know because of that the 9th episode of the final season of Arrow, the second to last episode, that Laurel showed up kind of reminding Mia. Like, Cisco basically made that. So maybe the same thing happened here. So I was like, but I was also wondering, it's like, maybe because Charlie's a Mithri, or maybe because Mithri / being super ancient, it didn't affect her. I would assume so. I'm like I said, I'm wondering what that would mean potentially for, like, Lucifer, like what that would mean. But obviously showing that Charlie is super, super old. So that's interesting. Like, what was her reasoning for breaking that? But also the fact is, going back to it, she scattered it across the multiverse, meaning that the moment the Earths all collapsed into one, it came back together, or at least all the pieces are here on this particular Earth, which is kind of interesting. And because of that, she's been feeling this whole situation. It's like, well, yeah, because it's like all the pieces are getting drawn together. Maybe it's something connected to her, not unless she's one of the 3 sisters, not unless that's what the whole thing is supposed to be. I don't think that we'll kind of have to see, but that was interesting. And at the same time, Astra's whole plan for this whole, you know, her encores and everything hasn't worked out. So she wants to get rid of John. So she goes visits a lady who's basically going to take John's coin and accelerate his time. It's actually kind of a bummer because it's like, oh yeah, in 10 years, the lung cancer was going to get him anyway. But now Astra owes her a favor. And it's like, oh, why did you make a favor seem like sin? And it's like, because this is hell, darling. And it's like, so, and because for her, because she was even being like, are you sure you really want to do this? And even making John die in such an agonizing way, you know, is kind of sad, just because it's like, she makes it seem like she might have moved past all that, but you still resent John for you being in a situation that you're in the first place. So the clock gets accelerated, and we see John brutally dying, like coughing up blood and everything. It's like, holy crap. So when John dies, he's automatically obviously going to go to hell. So I'm guessing we're going to see some of that. Like, the fact is, even if you kill John, I guess him being in hell his soul is going to belong to you, I guess. So it's kind of like, with this whole situation, you remove John from the equation and you make him kind of yours. So maybe that's what I'm curious what's going to happen now that her mom's spirit's free, but only inside of the mansion and everything. It's actually interesting too, because like Natalie had talked about the fact that she's actually the one that kind of basically pulled Charlie to this time and everything. So that's, to that manner in particular, because it's like, Constantine was like, yeah, I've never told anyone about this place. So it was like, how did you find this place? So, I don't know, it's all fascinating. Also, another element to this, obviously, like, Ray introduced Marie Antoinette to, Nora. And I love the whole thing of like, oh yeah, like, a stuffed head with its mouth stuffed or something. Is that what you kind of like? She's like, if that's what you're kind of correlating to look like me, like, we've got a lot to talk about. But I am curious to find out about that, because eventually they're probably going to be on screen together, like Marie Antoinette and Nora, and be like, the fact is they look alike. Because even he was like, yo, you should do some genealogy, because the fact is they made them look alike makes me think like there had to be a purpose for that. There has to be a reasoning to that. We'll ultimately have to, wait and see, but some very interesting developments. I'm curious to ultimately see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.